Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 7 of the No Holden Back podcast. My name is Luke Holden, currently sitting here with my dad, Ben Holden. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Luke. Watching the snow come down outside a little bit here in southeastern Michigan, but it'll be gone before we know it. So doing good, and looking forward to getting after it a little bit here today.
Sounds good, yeah. And of course, with COVID-19, the pandemic going on, we hope everyone's staying safe and staying healthy. And just to give the rundown of the numbers, currently in the world there are 2 million now confirmed cases, and we have 128,000 deaths. And just in the U.S., we have 600,000 plus cases confirmed, and 26,000 deaths now. So once again, we hope everyone's staying safe, following the state guidelines, and doing the right things. And I think here in our state today, there's currently a protest going on in Lansing called Operation Gridlock.
Yep.
Basically, some people in the state feel as though our rights are being infringed upon by our state government with some of the guidelines that are put in place. So,
yeah, a lot of people not happy about what they can and can't buy, what we can and can't do. I'll be honest, where I stand right now on this thing is, I think we need to do what's best for our health, number one.
Yeah.
That's really where I stand. Like it, dislike it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I stand on it. And I think it's gonna be a long day up in Lansing. There are tons of people up there.
Yes.
And people just driving their cars in front of the Capitol, creating gridlock, protesters on the front lawn of the Capitol, and signs up, and it's turned into a demonstration up there and a protest.
Definitely, yeah, and it should be pretty interesting to see what kind of happens with that, and if anything changes. I don't think it really will. I think the state government, at least here, and the governor are pretty set on what they want to do with the current pandemic that's going on. And we're probably, I believe we're still in the top 5 for most confirmed cases in terms of the states.
Yes.
So I don't know if it'll really make much of a difference, but I think it's just, again, it's an election year for the president. So I think some people are trying to, maybe sway that any certain way too. So
yeah, unfortunately, it's come into the mix, the politics of it, but that's the way these things go. And again, I'm in favor of what we're doing here. Let's stay in, let's stay safe, and until we get a cure and a vaccine, I think we're in for a long haul here. I do want to mention there is a gentleman that I worked with years ago when I was working for Comcast Local. You were just a little tight back then.
Yeah.
And I know you know this story, and it's going to lead, I think, right into something I know you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And that is Calhoun, who's a cameraman.
Mm-hmm.
He was a cameraman. He does a lot of freelance work in the Detroit area and here in the great state of Michigan. And he was working the night of the Pistons Utah Jazz game.
Yep.
He was in a coma for quite some time. He's back home. Happy to report that. Great news for Calvin and his family and all the freelance people that work with him. A ton of people I know. I used to work with them a lot, but still close contact with many of them and friends with many of them as well. So we're glad that Calvin is back home and doing better. And I got news yesterday, a very close personal friend of mine, I will keep their name out of it. There were 4 members of the family that had COVID-19, and I'm happy to say that they have all 4 recovered. So that is good, and I'm really, really happy to hear that. I was really shocked when we were on the phone yesterday, and I'm happy that she and her family are okay.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. And to touch a little bit on the Utah situation. Rudy Gobert on stream the other day I believe he was playing Final Fantasy VII. He said, someone asked him a question, do you think your relationship with Donovan Mitchell is compromised?
Yeah.
And he played it off. He said, I think it'll be fine. We'll settle our differences. Now, if I'm Donovan Mitchell, who did contract the virus from Gobert and his pretty rash actions a couple of days before he was tested positive for the virus, I wouldn't be too happy with him. And as a teammate, I would, I don't know if this would compromise what the Jazz have, in terms of, trying to win a championship in the next few years with those 2 guys, because they're both great players.
Yes.
But if I'm Donovan Mitchell, that relationship doesn't really go back the way it was immediately. I think there's a lot of things that have to be done, at least for me, if I was in his shoes, to fix that, because I'd be pretty disappointed in my teammate if they had done something like that and made it such a joke and spread it the way that they did.
Yeah, I'm with you, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And in terms of other sports items, not a whole lot going on, obviously, with the sports world being shut down. I did see last night the PGA Tour. They have some tentative plans. It was rumored that it is rumored that they're going to try to come back down in Texas for that tour event down there sometime this summer. I believe it was in June. I mean, I think golf, you can do, the social distancing with golfers. Yeah, you can keep that distance.
Yeah.
I can't see fans being there.
No.
I've read a lot of things like I'm sure you have, and a lot of us have. Many saying that there may be sports, but there's not going to be fans at least this calendar year in any of the stadiums, any of the arenas. But again, this is all subject to change, and we just got to take this thing a day at a time.
Definitely, 100% agree with that. And I think all these, leagues and owners and things like that will kind of get this sort of thing worked out. And, I think at the end of the day, what they're looking for is a vaccine for everyone, for the athletes, so that we can keep people safe and make sure that there's no more second outbreaks. I believe China's actually going through their second wave now because they had opened the country back up a little bit too early.
Right.
I believe it was within 4 days of seeing no new cases, they had opened the country back up to most functions.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're hitting a second wave again. So.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting next few weeks here with, now mid-April here, and we'll see what happens here in the final couple of weeks with the restrictions that are in place here in Michigan and the social distancing and all those things, gatherings and all those things that are, in place in other states around the country. So coming up today on episode 7, we've got a very special guest from the world of hockey. Shock, I know. Glen Giovanucci, who is the CEO of G-Form. They are a company out of Rhode Island.
Yep.
And Glen, the backstory on Glen, the short story, we'll get into it more when we get into the podcast, started playing college hockey at Army, transferred, went to Northeastern, became a captain there. One of his teams went to the Frozen Four, lost to North Dakota, then was an assistant. He was in scouting. He's done a lot of different things, player agent. But his company, G-Form, Luke, they make protective gear for Major League Baseball, for soccer, for mountain biking, accessories, basically like padding and protective gear that upon impact, they make the chemical. Let's say you're wearing something on your elbow. Yeah. Upon impact, it hardens to protect you further. So what they're doing is, what we're going to talk with Glen about here momentarily, is what they're doing to help healthcare workers, frontline workers, emergency responders. They're doing face shields. So it's a pretty cool thing he's doing.
Definitely, yeah. And we're looking forward to talking to him and, getting more of the backstory of how they made this conversion from making sports protective gear nearly being out of business once the pandemic had hit the country, to flipping that, creating face shields, protecting healthcare workers, and getting, hundreds of thousands out per week really to all these people to keep healthcare workers safe and still keep, his team and everyone that's working there at G-Form in a job.
Yeah, very, very true. He said his number one priority was to save the jobs of the people that he was going to have to lay off and to help people. He does have a sister that's a nurse.
Yep.
Her husband, his sister's husband, is a doctor, so he has a very close connection in this field.
Yes.
And he told me yesterday, we talked briefly, he said between the people's jobs that we saved and some other people they had to hire, the total is about 250 people. So that's great. Yeah. And without further ado, let's bring in Glen Giovanucci to talk more about it. All right, Luke. Well, you mentioned it. We're happy to be joined now via Zoom by Glen Giovanucci. Glen, thanks for joining us, and we really appreciate your time. How are you today?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. And, it's funny, Glen, that my son asked me, he said, so how did you get in touch with Glen? And I said, well, the long and short of it is I did a Northeastern game. I believe it was Jack Parker's last regular season game at Matthews. And Mark Majewski was your sports information director back then. And I've been on the email ever since. And Sky is now the new SID there. And I saw this and I reached out, and that's kind of how we got connected. So happy to have you on, and they do a great job there. So speaking of Northeastern, I know you started at Army. You played a year there. What was it about Northeastern that, so to speak, brought you back home?
Northeastern was, at that point in time, they were probably like one of the worst programs in the country. But I was looking to get home. I had been away at West Point for a while. It's like a 4-hour drive to get down there. My mom was getting sick my mom was sick at that point in time with cancer, and there was a good chance to come home, be around my family, get a chance to play in the Beanpot. And I definitely thought I had an opportunity to play there because the program just wasn't very good at that point in time.
Did you and the other guys help make it better when you were there?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was, quite a great 3 years that I had there. So our first year, which would have been 79, 80, 81, we actually went 12-0 and were the number one ranked team in the country from being not very good the year before. So it was like Sports Illustrated article on us, and it was really cool. We didn't know what we were doing right. And then we lost about 11 in a row, and we didn't really know what we were doing wrong. We ended up, I think, 12-12 and made the ECAC playoffs for the first time. So it was great. It was great. The same group came back the next year, mostly. And we made a run. We ended up winning the old ECAC, which there was no Hockey East at that point in time.
Right.
Went to the Frozen Four. It wasn't called the Frozen Four yet, but it was New Hampshire, Northeastern on the east, and Wisconsin and North Dakota on the west. And we lost to North Dakota in the semis and beat New Hampshire in the consolation game. Came in third in the country. So it was a great experience. The guys we're still very close, like brothers to this day. And last Friday night we had a virtual cocktail hour, which just kind of gives you an indication of the tightness that the group has.
Well, we know that. My son played hockey for about 10 years, and he switched over to lacrosse. And I've been a hockey guy my whole life, so I totally get that. There's no sport in the world like hockey, and that togetherness. It doesn't matter how long you're apart. It seems like old times when you get together like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, the team's great. Our captain called in from Milwaukee. Our best right wing was up in Ottawa. We had guys, down south, out west. A bunch of us still live in New England, so it's great because you can't see them all the time. But we literally text, once a week, twice a week, something like that. So it stays with you forever. And when you go through something like that, it changes the chemistry, and you actually create something that's so unique it never goes away.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to ask too, what was it like for you to come back home, being at a place like West Point and then coming back to Northeastern and finishing your college career there?
It was, I had a great year at West Point. I got a chance to play for Jack Riley, who was the coach of the 1960 Olympic gold medal team. A tremendous guy. It was that year we had a car accident around Thanksgiving time. It was basically the top 5 players on the team, and thank God nobody was killed, but most of them were out of action for the year. So I went from third line to first line pretty quickly and had a great season, and it was a lot of fun. So I was power play, penalty killing. Then I go to Northeastern, and it was, you got to earn it. You got to earn it. It's a whole different ball game. There's like 12 new recruits came in the year I came in, a bunch of transfers, but it was just special to get a chance to play on a team like that. And what we didn't know at the time, so our coaches were Don McKenney and Fernie Flam, and Fernie was the head coach. And if you can go on Hockey DB now if you're a hockey guy and check out who these guys were, or just Google them. Freddie Flamin was captain of the Boston Bruins original 6 team. He used to beat the crap out of Maurice the Rocket Richard. If you look at the old videos, and Don McKenney won the Lady Byng and was also the captain of the Bruins and had quite a career. So here we are, a bunch of knuckleheads. We didn't realize how lucky we were to be coached by these type of individuals, and they're very low profile guys, just pure and wholesome, and just we stayed friends for a long time. Even though coaches would give you a hard time, we became friends afterwards. It was great.
That's terrific. Glenn, let's talk a little bit about where you went from hockey. I know we talked a little bit last night. You said you did some scouting with Calgary and Minnesota, and then when did you get into the type of field you're in now? with your company, G-Form?
So I started in sales directly out of school. My dad said, you know, I love you. You're a great competitor, but you're not going to play in the NHL. So I agreed with him. It wasn't too hard to
Smart move, right?
Yeah, smart move.
Yeah.
So I worked for a couple of years in sales, and it didn't resonate with something that I truly wanted to do. But I learned some good things, and I just told my dad, I said, listen, I'm going to be a coach because I really want to be a coach. And I took a job up at Plattsburgh, which is at that point in time, and for many years after, probably one of the top D3 schools in the country. Learned a ton there. Recruiting, worked for Steve Hoare, who was the assistant coach when I was at Army. So,
Wow.
you know how the tight hockey network.
Yes.
Then went from there to go to work for Rob Riley, who was Jack Riley's son at West Point.
Yeah.
And like I told you last night, the AD, who was a great guy, Carl Elwood, said, "Why would we hire you back? You quit." And I said, "Well, first of all, I didn't quit. And who else could come in and talk to these kids and understand the experiences? Nobody on your staff in any sport probably has done that." So it was great. I really enjoyed it. My daughter Lauren was born at that point in time. And my wife and I, Mary Beth, we spent a lot of time going back and forth into New York City to understand what was going on. And we finally discovered that she had something called Rett syndrome, RETT, and it's a degenerative neurological disorder. So we were going to move back to Boston. And ironically, at the time, Fernie Flaman retired. Don McKinney became the head coach, and he hired me to be one of the assistant coaches. So it made it an easy transition to get back to Boston and continue in hockey. But at that point in time, I knew that the coaching dream was over because you read these stories all the time. You know, guy goes from this school to this school to this school in order to work his way up the ladder, and that's just how it is. And I couldn't do that anymore. I wanted to be where Lauren needed to be for doctors and family network and to support my wife and all that stuff. So I started thinking about it, and all of a sudden I got a call from a guy who was a next door neighbor growing up. "Hey, would you be interested in this job?" And it was my first job in the industry, selling baseball caps. So I said, "Yeah, hockey to baseball caps, that's pretty cool. I'll do it. It's better than some of the other things I could imagine." And that was the licensed sports industry, which it's you make in baseball, you make Yankee hats and jerseys and things like that, and football, all the teams. So it was my beginning in that world. But at the same time, I still wanted to stay in hockey. I still had that feel for it. So the Bruin scout at the time was a fellow named Joe Lyons. And Joe was, one of the original scouts in New England, and he was a commanding presence. And I played with the Sons at their academy. So their academy, very good school. David Silk from the '80 Olympic team.
Tony Amani, right?
Jeremy Roenick. Tony's actually my cousin.
Is he really?
Wow.
Yeah, Charlie Coyle played there.
Yeah.
Brooks Warpick, Ryan Whitney. I'm leaving out a bunch of guys, but
long list, yeah.
Yeah. So I fall way back on that list, but I played. I played. Well, so I knew the Lions family, and Joe said, "Listen, there's a job in Calgary. Would you be interested?" So he put my name in for it, and I interviewed with Jerry Blair, who's the head scout, and Doug Riseborough, who was part of the great Canadians teams in the 70s, 80s, and I ended up getting the job. So I became their Eastern scout, and it was great to keep involved in the game. So I knew who all the players were. I kept in touch with all the coaches. It was a different angle. I played, then I became a coach. Now I became the next evolution, which was a scout, and it was really cool and interesting. I worked for a great group of guys. I started off working for Doug Riseborough, and ended up Al Coates was running the team. Had some really cool things. But people always ask me, they say, like, who's your best draft pick? And I kind of have like two answers to that. So the first one was I forget exactly when it was, but it was kind of like in the early to mid 90s. and I was following this kid around. He played for St. Sebastian's School, and St. Sebastian's again has a legacy of great hockey players. And his name was Mike Greer, and nobody really had Mike on the list very high. Yeah. And I thought the world of him. I didn't really know who he was. When I met the family, and I found out later that his dad was the head of personnel for the Patriots. So when I went in and interviewed him, he probably thought I was a knucklehead. But I made the attempt to get in there and meet them. He's a very impressive kid, and he was a great straight line skater. He just needed some work on the edges, and man, could he shoot and score and crush people.
Yes.
So we get to around the fifth round. And I walk up to the table. We're at the draft floor now. And you've seen that before, every team has a table. Yep. So I walk up to Jerry Blair and I said, "We're gonna start thinking about my guy." And he says, yeah, we'll get to him. And so now it's the sixth round, and I said, "He's gonna get taken." He says, "Nah, we're gonna take this guy." We took some kid from like Niagara who hadn't played hockey in 2 years, and I'm like, "Oh no!" So we're going to pick him in the seventh round, and we trade our draft pick. So it's the eighth round, and my boss is going, "Okay, we got him." Right before St. Louis drafts him. So Greer comes out of the stands, and I'm standing next to Dougie Risebrough, who's the GM, and Al McNeil, who's the assistant GM, and he was the coach of the Canadians that won the Stanley Cup in 1971. And he's like, he looks over and they see him coming down. And Mike Greer is a massive individual.
Big boy.
And he gets down to the table and they give him a shirt and it looks like spandex on him. And they go, he can play? Yeah, I've been telling everybody to draft him like 3 rounds earlier. Holy shit. They're just going on. And they saw him play at BU. Then he signed with St. Louis, but then he went to the Oilers and Calgary Flames Oilers. He came down and he kicked the crap out of it. So after that, everyone believed me when I said you should sign people. You should draft people. You should do it. The other one is you sometimes you don't draft people, but you write. When they pass their draft eligibility, they can become free agents.
Correct. Yeah.
So there was 2 kids up at Vermont. And there was a goalie too, and they were all good. But the kid I really liked was Marty St. Louis, and we ended up signing him. Nick Polano actually pulled the trigger on that deal. So I put in my reports and said how much I loved him, and so him and Al Coates pulled the trigger. And ended up, unfortunately for Marty, or maybe fortunately, they didn't really give him a chance to play. He never got up. He played in the farm club for a couple of years, and then he went and became MVP of the NHL. So pretty good player. But so I really enjoyed the scouting piece of it. But my kids, as it got along, so I did it all through the 90s, and as I got to early 2000s, my kids were getting into like junior high school and high school and playing sports, and I didn't want to miss that.
Get it?
I did. So I decided to stop that, and I started a player agency with a very good friend of mine named Bobby Norton. So Bobby's a tremendous lawyer, is partner in a law firm downtown, and we kind of had the yin and the yang, if you will. So Bobby was a college hockey player at Colby. I worked in the hockey industry. I coached, so I knew that network. Bobby's one of the greatest civil litigators, that I've ever seen. So we started to get into that business, and we've been doing that. We manage about 3 to 5 kids a year, and we've had first rounders, and we've had kids who came from nowhere. So it's been great. Probably the top player on our portfolio right now is Charlie Coyle with the Bruins. We just did his deal, so that's cool. So I've been doing this on the side for a long time, but our philosophy is always, listen, you can't take care of a lot of people. Let's give a few people a lot of attention and love and direction. And so it's worked out great. So Bobby and I love it. And we have a we we don't have to take people. We don't have to do anything. So we work and we pick good families and good people and try to help them. If they don't make it, we network them into the work industry and help them get jobs. So it's a lot of fun, and I think we do a really good job at it. But at the point that I got in scouting, I was also simultaneously on a parallel path in the workplace, and I worked for Puma, global brand. I worked for Reebok, global brand, and then Adidas, and all those were senior leadership positions in the sales side. And more recently, up to last year, I was working for Fanatics, which is the premier sports license company. And we had a $1 million wholesale business that I was running, and it was a lot of fun. But what happened was I got approached by G-Form. And G-Form is a company I'm working for right now. I'm the CEO. I started last fall. And the company makes protective sports padding. As a matter of fact, I brought one with me.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd do that to show.
It's just an example. But so this is an elbow guard, right? So players will wear it on their elbow. It covers the top. It covers the bottom of the elbow. But what's cool about the company is we make protective padding and equipment for baseball, soccer, mountain biking, and we're getting into lacrosse next year, and the goal is to be into football, into hockey shortly down the road. But I don't know if you can see it.
We can see it. Yeah.
There's lines in there. We call that our SmartFlex technology. So what we do is we mold these pads with foam, and then the mold comes down and it creates these hinge like areas on the pad. And so the pad actually is flexible. Sorry about this, guys.
You're good.
But the pad is flexible as opposed to the plastic that you see out there. But the cool thing is, because of the special sauce we put into the formula, the SmartFlex means that this foam is encapsulated, so it's sealed tight. And when it like this, I can push in.
Right.
When you hit it, hardens on impact. So it stays flexible, but protects you because it hardens on impact. Then it goes back to flexible, and it actually the little things you don't think about, because it's encapsulated, it's waterproof, so it doesn't get heavy. And you as a dad and you as a player, what happens when you wear pads a long time? Stink. They stink. Yeah, so because it's encapsulated, you can wash it and dry it. So it's unlike any other product in the marketplace. So I said, wow, we can do something with this. And I joined the company. It's tough to leave Fanatics, but I really thought we had something at G-Form. Great company, great product. And we started doing all the things that I thought we could. Started reaching out and getting placement at Dick's Sporting Goods, Shields, Academy all around the country, into soccer specialty shops, team dealers, REI for mountain bikers. Yep. So great experience. And then this happened.
Yeah. This happened. And then, so you're looking at, I was telling Luke, about it, and Luke did a lot of reading on the stuff you sent us, which was very helpful.
Yes.
So you had said you had about 40 employees, right, in your company at the time?
Yeah, in our factory, we had about 40 employees. Yeah, and what we're facing is, because all the companies I just mentioned and others, they had to shut their doors.
Right.
There's no way. So no revenue coming into them, no revenue coming back to us. And like a lot of people, we're looking to furlough them. The difference between furlough and layoff is furlough is hopefully temporary, and they retain their benefits. Yeah. So we were going down that road, and then we just didn't want to give up. So we started brainstorming and try to figure out what can we do. So we started talking about 3 different options, and the first option was hand sanitizer. And it's such a high alcohol content, you really can't do it unless you're in that business. So that's why, like, Jack Daniels is doing a great job at it. They know what they're doing. So we ruled that out. The next one was the face masks. So the ones that go right over the paper face masks. And it just wasn't something we could do. We didn't have the stitching ability, the sewing machines. And then we figured out, hey, let's do face shields. So the face shields became something that we got focused on, and in about 24 hours said, let's do this. So all of a sudden, okay, stop making protective pads with this great technology and start making face shields. How do you do it? How do you know? So the biggest concerns were raw materials. So you need this plastic shield, the elastic that wraps around your head, foam that protects your forehead, a couple other ingredients, but those are the key ones. And how do you go out and get that? So we, our team started reaching out, and it was an all-out effort. Everyone was taking a different avenue, different product, and we were able to start getting our products coming in. And then once they came in, we had to figure out how do we put this together in the most efficient, effective, and speedy way. And I didn't really come from manufacturing, but now I understand it. So when you're putting on the foam on top of the shield, you want it to take like 3 seconds, and then when you move it here, it's got to take 4 seconds. It's that type of a process I'd never seen before, but it was a great learning experience. And our leaders in operations and manufacturing did a great job. So we've experimented with heat applications and rivets and eyelets and industrial staples and things along those lines. And we've been able to come up with something that really works. And like yesterday, we produced 20,000 face shields just in one day. So it's just a great credit to the teamwork of my company, and the people who come into that factory every day. We talk about like the first responders, the policemen, the firefighters, and the nurses and doctors. Like those people are so brave, but to know that you could walk into a building and get coronavirus where you could really probably stay home and collect unemployment takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage. And our people are doing that every day. They're working crazy hours, and they're doing it for a couple of reasons. Number one is because they want to stay employed, and they want to help out the effort. And that's that's the coolest thing you can be part of. You can just see how like literally, I would say most of the people in our company are working like 14, 15 hours a day right now, because we're new at it. We just, we're not as efficient as we want to be. So, you could walk in and, we didn't get the right plastic this day. We got to reach out and get the same plastic from somebody else. It is just part of this every day. But it's been an amazing adventure, and just to work with people like that who care so much and are passionate, and it's just amazing, But it happened not by accident, but pretty close. We were about to do some work with another local company called Atlantic Foot Care. So we're G-Form, and Atlantic makes foot insoles and shoe insoles, excuse me. And we talked to them, and they would say, "Yeah, that's great for you guys. We're about to lay off 40 people too. Well, maybe you can do some work for us." So we talked to Atlantic, and then there's 4 other companies. We got a call from another guy today. They're all in the same situation. They want to, how can we keep our people employed, keep them out of the unemployment line, and help in this effort? And it's just been phenomenal. So we've contracted, 4 of those companies, and our production will probably be up to closer to 35,000 a day before the end of the week. So we're starting to crank. We're networking and servicing agencies and hospitals, and we don't know how long this is going to go. We hope that the coronavirus goes away quickly, but there's some residue of business that we can continue with down the road, and then get back on our feet with the normal day-to-day business.
Normally do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask too, I think something that enough people don't really think about or realize is, how has the shipping process for you guys been, and how often are you getting these face shields out to the healthcare workers in hospitals?
That's a great question, Luke, and it reminded me, because I was thinking about it today. I was driving down to the factory. You see all these truck drivers out there, and they're heroes too, man. Nothing happens in this country without them. They're delivering the food, they're delivering these supplies, they're delivering everything. So shout out to them as well, because none of us would be very happy if they weren't around. So what we do is it's probably like every couple of days, we just actually started shipping last week. So we as we started ramping up, we were shipping every couple of days to accumulate it. And the people that we're working with, they'll request whatever freight carrier they want. But now we're shipping pretty much every day. There's more orders coming in from different locations, and it's typically like a UPS or a FedEx pickup type of situation going on.
So Glenn, where are some of the places that they've gone out to, the mass that your company's manufacturing have gone to?
Right now it's primarily been through medical distributors. Okay. So there's big companies out there like McKesson and Cardinal Health, and we're working with companies like that. And we haven't directly shipped, but for example, we'll be shipping Tufts New England Hospital next week in Boston. There are hospitals locally that were South Shore Hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital, Hasbro Hospital in Providence. We're talking to their people, and we hope to get product to them fairly quickly.
Excellent.
Awesome. You have anything?
Is there anything else you want to get out there about? I mean, I last night, I just want to say this. I could hear it in your voice. I can see it right now in the video portion of our podcast. And you mentioned, I believe the number you said was we kept 250 and combined that, jobs that is, and hired, as you mentioned, other people. Can you just talk what you've seen? You mentioned your employees are working 14, 15-hour days to do this. Just share with us, if you can, in closing, kind of the satisfaction that you're seeing out of your workers and the pride they're taking in this process that is awesome that you guys are doing.
Yeah, you just sent like a shiver up my spine. I loved how you delivered that one. That's great, Ben. But so we, not being in that industry, we really didn't know who to speak to initiate and get purchase orders from. So we reached out to Governor Raimondo's office in Rhode Island, and then Senator Reed's office, U.S. Senator Reed in Rhode Island, and they bent over backwards to really help us network with the right people. We're talking to FEMA now. We're talking to the states in New England. We're hopefully we'll be getting opportunities to bid on face shields, around the country through these people. But the one thing about Rhode Island is it's, I want to say it's where manufacturing in the U.S. started, and they did not want to stop, manufacturing from happening in Rhode Island. They believe in it so much, and and we do too. So the fact that we partnered with these, we call it production partner network. So we're working with Atlantic Foot Care, with Ocean State Bookbinding, with a company called VPI, a company called Larson, a company called Beck, and every one of them we're going to have to furlough or lay off their employees. So that added up to about 225 people, and we had to add another 30 people just to keep up with production. So altogether, we were able to collectively save these jobs, and I think the state of Rhode Island was appreciative. But like I think I was telling you last night, my best friend, he called me last week, and he said, I don't know what to do, but like, can you just have your one of your people take my credit card and let me buy lunch for everybody at the factory one day? It's that type of action that you see every day. I get texts from friends, and some people who aren't even friends, like, how can we help in the effort? And it just when you put your head down at night, just makes you feel good. And I just feel really good because our employees, who are, they're employees, but they're all friends too. They're all working, and we're doing something that's helping those special people who are fighting on the front line. So that makes us feel really great.
Yeah, and I know you told me last night your sister's a nurse, her husband's a doctor, so it's even more near and dear to your heart, I'm sure, as well, in that vein as well.
Exactly. I know exactly what they're going through, and it's everywhere. It's soldiers, around the world. My brother-in-law's serving overseas right now, and he's facing that where he is. So we're all, I think everybody's trying in their own way, whether it's social distancing or donations. You just it's great humanity to see, and I think it's making the world better, and definitely the U.S.
100%. Totally agree. Really appreciate you doing this, Glenn. We commend you and all your workers and everybody that's involved, what you're doing. And we're going to do what we can to spread the word more for you. I know you've had a lot of media attention, and deservedly so. But we really appreciate what you're all doing there. So thanks so much, and thanks for this.
Yeah, Ben and Luke, thank you so much. And if people, need face shields, they can just reach out to us at G-Form. So thank you very much, guys. It's been awesome. Love talking hockey and business.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so our thanks again to Glen Giovanucci. He's the CEO of G-Form, a company out of Rhode Island. They are involved in making those face shields to help the frontline healthcare workers, first responders. I mean, great to talk a little hockey with him too, and and get his backstory, but what he's doing and the effort that he put into helping his employees, helping other employees, and more importantly, not more importantly, but secondarily to that, to help those that are out there as we all battle the coronavirus.
Yeah, definitely. We really appreciate him taking the time out of his very busy schedule with what, his company and a lot of the other companies that have kind of branched together out in Rhode Island are doing right now. It's really cool to see that. And, he mentioned it, everyone has kind of helped in some way, shape, or form, and with what's going on in the current pandemic and the state of the country and the world, and we couldn't appreciate more what he's doing for those healthcare workers, and his workers are doing one hell of a job to build these face shields and keep people protected, and they're also kind of putting themselves out there too on the line a little bit. So
100%, no doubt about it. So that'll do it for this episode of No Holding Back. Thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate Glenn and his company again, and a tip of the cap to them as well for all they do to get these face shields out, to continue to help those working in the healthcare and the first responders, all their work there out there on the front lines. Yeah. For Luke, Ben, thanks for listening and watching. No Holding Back. We'll talk to you next time for a brand new edition of it.